I wasn't really spoiled for complete and utter nonsense this morning. And BBC Breakfast that is usually a little bit leftist. They try to be defending the weak, so to speak. And this time they have swallowed a big chunk of feminist propaganda bullshit. And we're gonna show you exactly how angled they really are in the reporting. BBC has a mandate. They must maintain neutrality. They must give both sides of an argument the ability to have their voice heard. That's why you always see them saying on shows when it comes up to elections, even comedy shows produced by BBC, say like Russell Howard's Good News, they have to give a little bit of airtime to everyone if they're doing a segment on something. But this is what BBC is failing right here, right now, because they swallowed the feminist propaganda bullshit, and we're gonna look through this. This is a segment from 2014, the 19th of August, and it was broadcasted at 7:44 in the morning. So we have Billy and Louise sitting here, and they're about to talk about the big feminist myth of the gender wage gap.
Right, paying men and women different amounts to do the same job has long been controversial. Now it seems that despite considerable efforts being made to iron out inequalities, the gender pay gap is still widening.
Almost 70,000 managers in the UK were asked about their salary. The results found that on average, men are earning £9,000 a year more than women.
Let's stop it right there. Men are earning £9,000 more than women. Just put this into perspective. We're talking about a managerial position, as in you have to make sure that people get into work on time. You have to make sure that you have adequate cover for whatever the job is, that there are people that can and know how to do the job. You need to fire people. These are brain things, so you don't have to really rely on muscle strength, which would make a man very much superior. Now, 70,000, I'm assuming that this spread is across a lot of sectors, so there might be a few differences where high social skills on one scale might be very, very good, which women exceed that, and on the other hand, we would have something like construction workers, where physical strength and the ability to haul ass is a really, really worthwhile attribute to have. But disregarding all of this, assuming that it's more brain power than muscle power, you could hire a woman, if this is accurate, you can hire a woman for almost £10,000, and this is the income, so we're skipping everything like the employer have to pay tax and insurance and everything. You would save as an employer more than £10,000 a year by putting a woman in a managerial position than a man. £10,000, that's almost the level of the minimum wage. You could almost hire minimum wage full-time staff for them to manage on the money you would save of a woman and a man, on the difference of that. This is the level of bullshit they're already talking about. But let's get on with the interview and see if they actually have something real to say about it.
Well, to earn the same as a male manager during her career, a woman would have to work the equivalent of an extra 14 years.
Now, there is Goodfella on this, YouTube here. Goodfella, Sargon of Akkad, they have already gone into this. There's also a hashtag, Prove the Wage Gap. I urge you to check in on these things. But Goodfella brought this out. There was a study done by Glassdoor.com, which is one of the work websites that I really, really enjoy, because you can get honest reviews about companies and see how the work cultures is, the retention level and all that. They did a good study, an in-depth study about what people earned in different positions. And Goodfella covers this pretty well. But he's going through most of the big heavy jobs where you would think a woman would be at disadvantage. But instead it's proven that women that prefers career or chooses career actually out-earns men of an equal level. But where do we see feminists talk about this? I don't know. Let's see if the feminists here are bringing it up.
The research suggests that the pay gap increases with age and seniority, as men typically earn bigger bonuses as well, on top of their bigger salaries.
Well, with us now, Pravita Cooper, who recruits people at director level, and Anne Franke, who is Chief Executive of the Chartered Management Institute. Good morning to you both.
Right, so do you remember I said BBC has a mandate that they must be even and balanced and fair in their news coverage and in any coverage they do? There are two women here and they distinctively look like they have that kind of notion and idea that women should be put in powers. I can guarantee you that both of these are of the consideration that women need extra help and motivation and need to be kicked and forced in position that they may not be interested in.
And let me start with you. I was under the impression that, in fact, the pay gap was shrinking, but it doesn't seem to be, the pay gender gap. Anyway.
Well, no, unfortunately it's not. And what we see, this was a survey amongst professional women, is that whilst at the lower age group, so 25, the pay gap is 6%. At the top, so women 45 plus, it's 35%. A very big gap indeed. So the higher...
Fucking hell! 35%? How do we have male bosses? How is it possible to justify a 35% pay difference? There isn't anyone on this planet that wouldn't hire a woman. You can hire a woman and a third, 35%. You can have a part-time working mother that can stay at home, that can do the job. You can have a full-time working woman, and that would be the price of just one man. Think about that. She just said 35 fucking % in pay gap difference for the same job, same experience, same expertise, same education. That is what she means. I have a feeling there is something else, but let's see what she has to say.
Up the ladder you go, the less you are paid versus a man for the same role.
OK, the first question is, why then is that happening?
Well, you know, there are many reasons, but ultimately...
Did you catch that? The less you're paid versus a man for the same role. That reeks of so much bullshit, I'm almost gagging.
It's cultural. The cultures of organizations at the top are still too male-dominated.
Okay, so she just played a culture card. That's very interesting because we see the same difference all over the globe. Which means it isn't a cultural thing because you have the same feature coming in developing countries. Where you have, say, India, where the women mass, which is where this pay gap myth goes wrong, it just compares women, and this is how much money they have in their wallets, and men, and that's how much money they have in their wallets. It's kind of like going down the street, and you meet two men, two women, and you ask them, how much coins do you have in your wallet right now? You don't take into account that the men might have been coming straight from a bank. The men might have won the lottery. You don't take anything of that into account. You just take what's dangling between the legs and how much that is jingling in their purse. That's the only thing you measure when you do the wage gap myth. So you haven't taken into account anything else. But let's see.
Women need to be fostered more, mentored more, encouraged to apply, encouraged to negotiate their salaries. And what we'd really like to do is measure this.
Did I call it or didn't I? They need to be encouraged, fostered, and encouraged more, and just, like, push them into positions they may not even be interested in.
Biggest issue is the lack of transparency. We just don't know, is there a pay gap or not in your organization?
Wait. The biggest issue is the lack of transparency? Didn't she just present that we know at age 25, women have 6% less, and at age 45, it's 35%? But she doesn't have the transparency, doesn't have the data, so where did she get these numbers from?
Isn't there supposed to be an Equal Pay Act, which was supposed to have sorted this out a long time ago?
Well done, Billy, but that was a very, very softball question. This is what should have been open with. I told you they were being very, very kiddie gloves and everything with this. And this isn't even a hard question to ask. It's illegal to be paid less because of your gender, or even on the opposite scale of it, it's illegal to be paid more because of your gender. And that is what the Pay Act do, and exactly what it means. And if you are being paid less because of your gender, you can drag your company or your boss to court and you will make millions. You will not have to work for several years, if not for the rest of your life, for the money you can extract from a company that pays you less or more because of your gender. Now, fair enough, if you are, and I'm assuming male mostly, and being paid more because of your gender, you're not that likely to sue because you're not that stupid.
Well, over 40 years ago, yes, there was, and I think what it shows us that legislation on its own isn't enough.
40 years ago, did you hear that? 40 years ago this law was into effect. So I think we probably need to educate women, if they are the ones being hurt so much by this. I think we need to educate the women how to go to the police, how to seek out a solicitor, how to take the law and apply it into real life, because you're being protected by it. There is nothing more that we can do. You are legally entitled to the right pay, the equal pay. That's all there is to it. If you're not being paid for your job, go to the legal authorities and get the money out of them. Extract that and then some, because it's your legal right.
And I work with the 30% Club, and I think some of
Which is what?
It's a campaigning group that works with many other organisations to try and promote the rate at which women are accelerated onto boards.
30% Club must probably be the dumbest name I've ever heard. Now, I get the idea that we are 50-50, well, technically it's about 54% women and 46% men on this planet. And that it should be reflecting in the workplaces and everything. But we know that different jobs appeals to different people. And this 30% disregards that completely. It is no matter of interest. It's 30% to be shoved in to any factor, that there should be 30% women everywhere. Now, we know that the STEM jobs is less than 1 in 4. That's 25%. There aren't enough women to fill these positions, let alone interested women that may actually want to work with it. I've gone to university, and to be perfectly honest with you, I keep in touch with the alumni every now and then. I check in on them once every 2 years. And I see very, very few people working with what they educated themselves as. There are, true enough, there are a lot of them doing the jobs of the industry that they educated themselves toward, to what they got a degree. But I've come across engineers that settled around and became software developers. Not software engineers, software developers. The engineering is probably helping them. Now, there are tons of those that split in different ways. But we do know that when it comes to university, women in far more abundance are interested in the social studies, the gender studies, these things that don't really give you an edge or something toward any career path. And if you're going to be a manager or a big boss, a CEO, board member, you need a very, very strong mental attitude. You need to be strong mentally. This isn't a simple and easy cakewalk job. You have to be responsible. Say that you land yourself a job as director of procurement or technology or something. You have a very, very high job. You're not up at the board, but you are at the director position of a larger company. Now, suddenly the company has lost 5 contracts in a row and it's time to start firing people. Would you be able to sit and look into the faces of a lot of people that you worked with for a while and say, we're going to have to let you go. It's certainly nothing personal. It's just business. We can't afford to pay you anymore. Can you honestly say, man or woman, feminist, non-feminist, whatever special snowflake category you would like to attribute yourself to, Can you honestly say that you have the mental strength to look so many people in the eye and say, we're going to have to let you go. I know that you were struggling with your mortgage. I know you're probably going to have to foreclose your house. I know your kids are going to struggle. I know this and this and this and this and this about you, because I know you on a personal level also. But unfortunately, there is no more money. You have to go. Can you honestly tell me that you have the strength for it? I think there are very few people who can actually say that they do. And even those that do don't have it that easy. This is the simplest job part of being director, of being higher level on the job, on any kind of job where you have to manage people, where you have more responsibilities and there are more complex nuances around your actions than just what your paycheck gives you.
This year, for the first time, we have a woman on all FTSE 100 boards, which is great. And I think part of that progress has been made through the engagement of chairmen, actively getting involved in the debate, and lots of different initiatives to try and get more women onto boards. And I would support doing something very similar around this issue, because partly it's about bringing this debate into the public arena.
This is something that is odd, because she says that there aren't enough women getting in there, and that we already have all these programs that put women in there, that forces them in there. Isn't this really revealing of how bad it really is for the feminist propaganda? There are so many institutes and courses and groups and organizations supporting, building, helping, pushing women into these positions. And yet, out of the jobs that we have available, she wants to make it 30% in the STEM subjects. She's the 30 club, but there are only 25% women available. The group isn't available, but she wants to force that in. That means that if she's going to get her way through today, we will have 5% of the STEM workforce that is not qualified to do this. And it's going to be 100% women. Now, I think that, if anything, would make a feminist quite upset that an unqualified woman is being forced to do something she doesn't want to do. But I don't think their logic really reaches that far.
As we are, and this research is done. But I think, as Anne says, in organisations, starting to actually be a bit more transparent and talk about what is the size of the gap and what can companies do to reduce it.
Okay, so she's now trying to assert that there is a gap, but she doesn't have the transparency, she doesn't have the data to actually prove that there is one. The idiocy of these.
Okay. So if somebody does find out, for example, that they are paid considerably less, and as you say, there is legislation, but what should they do then? Because the nature, it's difficult to speak out about it, possibly, isn't it?
What a softball question again! She didn't say, oh, it's in the law, therefore you have the law on your side, why aren't you taking actions? I have a feeling we're going to have a big rant about feelings and confidence and don't dare do it, and we will not be listened to because we're women.
Well, I think it's very difficult for women to sort of confront this in an emotional way with their line manager. I think you have to have a rational debate and you have to be able to take facts. So one of the ways in which pay gets measured in organisations is the way in which you're rated around your performance. And so what women need to do is take data about how they're performing, the success of the various parts of the businesses that they run, and talk about that rather than emotionally, I just feel it's not fair, because that doesn't move the debate forward.
Wow, that was actually a very sound advice. And I think she hit the head on the nail. Very good there. Not go emotionally about it. Because when it comes to work, it is, do you or do you not deliver? Can you deliver? Do you have the skills? Did you deliver? What happened?
Let me give you a hypothetical example then. Say there's two posts, the same posts are advertised, 5 applicants, and the company decides to give one to a man and one to a woman. There would be a salary range announced within that for that post, for X plus 10,000, whatever.
For those of you outside of UK, I know a few other countries where they list the exact amount of money that you will be getting for the job. Now, even when that listing is being given as an exact amount, that you will get 24,134 plus benefit. When they give you something like that, that's usually exactly what the salary is. Now, for managerial posts, creative posts and freelance work, which is areas where I do work a lot, there can be a really, really big gap in the payment selections. And I think just yesterday I saw a job which required nothing but decent brain, creative mindset. That was all that was required from yourself. A few experience bits, but the salary ranged from 24,000 to 40,000 pounds per year. That was what they were offering. A really, really wide range for just one position. That is very, very common in UK. I've seen it very, very much less in other countries. In Scandinavia, where you pretty much, if they list the salary you will be getting or could expect to get, then they are very much on the pen.
Is it the case that the man then will generally get offered more, or he'll negotiate a better salary to start with, or what happens?
So let's pick up on that point, and you've touched on a couple of things there. Firstly, talk about the base salary.
Still softballing the questions here. If you paid attention, Billy Boy was now trying to angle the question to try and hint in that the man will be given more just because he's man. So he's trying to angle the feminist agenda in there, that just because man will get more. But for those of you that are still tagging along, I know this is about 26 minutes in, I proved it in the beginning that £9,000, there is no way in hell any sensible being would be paying that much more for someone that is equally qualified and can deliver the same kind of results.
The man is much more likely to walk in and say, right, so my expectation is a base salary of X, and I believe I'm worth it because of I've done this, that, and the other. The woman is less likely to negotiate that starting salary, and that's something that needs to change. The second point comes to the bonus. So again, the man is much more likely, as Pavita said, to walk in with a litany of facts. I've done this.
So now we're already starting to get to the bottom of something here. You get the range of the salary where you can ask, this is where we expect to pay for you. We're ready to pay up to, say, 40,000. But we will pay as low as 24,000 if we can get away with it. Now, obviously, 24,000 versus 40,000 is a massive difference. That's almost another person. So you could technically get 2 if you were holding yourself to the lower end. So 2 times 24 is 48,000. So for £8,000 more from the maximum salary, you could have 2 people doing double the output. Well, she was saying here, the man will walk in and demand more and expect more. And she's right, that might be an attitude that women need to change. But I know that this isn't so much a man versus woman issue. This is very much a cultural issue and how taboo it is to talk about money. And I know many cultures have it, or I should say countries, because it's difficult when you say culture, because that's a very fluid thing. But I know that many countries have a very, very high taboo on talking about how much money you earn and what you get for a job you're doing, because it's considered very unattractive. Flashing money around is never wrong in any of these countries, but telling people how much money you make is apparently so. And I'm talking now directly about Sweden, where it's a cultural taboo to say, oh, I'm being paid 480,000 kronas a year. That's about 48,000 pounds a year. 45. But it's very taboo to say that because you're considered rude and whatnot. But let's get on what she has to say here, because I've been rambling on very long on this 5-minute clip.
Yes, I've done that. I'm worth this.
So
I'm worth that.
It's a question of getting women to negotiate more strongly for themselves.
Encouraging them, yes. And what we see is as women go up the ladder, their level of confidence often drops. Now that is a cultural issue in the modern corporation. We need to encourage women to be more confident.
Again with the cultural issue, so self-confidence has nothing whatsoever to do with culture. Self-confidence comes completely from within. And I will go off on a tiny little tangent here, and I know this video is being long and I've been rambling on. But Robin Williams recently committed suicide, and people have been talking about depression. And a lot of the posts that spins around on Facebook is that you can't tell a depressed person to snap out of it or to get out of it. Regrettably, this is misinformed. When it comes to depression, the only way of getting out of it is to take yourself out of it. That is the answer to stop being depressed. It is not the solution. It's not the pathway of getting there. Now, I know people try to blame that, oh, but it's hormonal, I need medication, I need this, I need that. No, very few people do require medication because of hormonal pathways and whatnot and brain chemistry that is really screwing up. Most people reach a narcissistic stage where they reach the furthest end of it, where the depression, where you realize that, oh, this is very boring, this is very... it's not entertaining anymore, and that feeds a negative down spiral. But it's only you yourself that can pick yourself out of that negative down spiral by doing something else, by getting something else done. Your depression, however, will push you toward apathy, to want nothing, to have less desire. And as I said, the misinformation when it comes to depression there is that they cannot take themselves out of it. They can, they just don't want to. That's the very, very big difference. That's the majority of the depression or people claiming to be depressed is. So it's a lot of self-help that is needed, and you need to take control of yourself. It's not always easy. It is this answer. It's just not always the solution. I just have to flick this in here. Need to encourage women, need to boost them, need to help them. Why are women so weak? Why, if your confidence drop and if you need all this support to be able to handle a higher level job, are you really suitable for this job to begin with? When there are so many more people, both men and women out there, that can do this job without any help, that are more naturally suitable and capable. And I'm talking about both men and women here, because I've seen some fantastic examples of leadership, both through military and through a lot of my freelance working, where you have to have very, very sharp people to make things happen. I have not noticed a difference between men and women. I have noticed a very big difference in personalities and individual people that cannot cope with it, that cannot handle positions of responsibility. Very few people do, and I've said that before in my earlier videos.
And to really change the culture at the top.
The other question, which I'm not sure who wants to answer this, is many women, working women, have taken time off, haven't they?
Right, now we're going to jump in on the maternity thing here, and I'm going to try to round this off. I know I'm going to try and keep this below 40 minutes if possible. Now they're going to say that women taking time off and being with the kids is reducing the chances. Yes, it is. It means that you need to catch up. Because if you take 2 years off from work, you have lost 2 years. And I know that this is difficult to comprehend for most people, but say you're working in groundbreaking technology. Say that you're working with the latest mobile phone technology that is out there. This is such a vague and fuzzy industry that the leading people barely knows what is going on, and they need to catch up. They need to spend hours upon hours reading blogs, catching up, going to conferences. It's very, very hectic to keep on top, to stay informed. If you're taking 2 years out, you're a dinosaur. If you take 2 years out, even if you just go on a 2-year backpack traveling around the globe, you've lost 2 years that you will struggle to catch up on because you missed steps in technology, you missed certain important things. It's very, very crucial to get the top salary that you're always there. Women do get a raw deal that they may have to stay at home taking care of kids, but if we're talking about the levels we're talking about here, the higher managerial positions, you can afford a nanny, you can focus on a career. Question is, do you want to?
To have children. Is that where the sort of issues come, or women who haven't, still have the same problems, do they?
It's a factor. I mean, I think, clearly any length of break, and if you've had a significantly long career break, will slow the rate of progression.
Yes.
But we've done work with the 30% Club that shows that women without children feel as marginalised and feel their career's been affected, if not as much, if not more, than women with children. So I don't think it's just an issue about having families.
And you talk about
I would echo that because I think one of the big myths is that this is all around maternity leave, and it's not. It is about women in upper echelons feeling less confident, being less encouraged.
Yet again, self-confidence comes from within. That is nothing cultural, that is all down to you. If you're not confident enough, you're not eligible enough, you are not capable of doing the job. You shouldn't be there because there are so many more people, both men and women, that can do that job better than you can.
And not wishing to continue in the kind of corporate environment in which they find themselves.
All right. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Alright, now I'm gonna flick in another segment here. They catch up and they claim that this is, we had emails come in. Both of these comments are coming from their Facebook feed. You can see that on facebook.com/BBC Breakfast under this title. And they're small, short, and they're very, very positive comments. It's outrageous that they get away with this.
Just had a few emails in on that question of the gender pay gap.
So, few emails. They have 2, and these are 2 Facebook comments.
Maureen saying, I agree it should be equal pay for equal work. The government, though, should concentrate on everyone being able to earn a living wage.
Yes.
Alright, first comment had absolutely nothing to do with anything like the gender wage gap. Not criticizing, not doing anything. Just a general complaint that we have a very, very fine line between living salary and minimum wage. Is you're basically a penny above what you need to live if you're on the minimum wage. It's really, really difficult, especially in London.
So many of you are getting in touch.
Okay, so she acknowledges many of us getting in touch. I've read through this. There's about, I think it was 60 or 70 comments on Twitter and Facebook. 99% of them are negative. And do recall that BBC has a mandate that they need to be fair and balanced in the reporting.
Karen says, saying that women just need to negotiate to get equal pay is much more complicated, she says. When women do negotiate, response, she says, is negative.
Once again, it would be lovely if that could have been proven that response is negative when women do try to negotiate. I think they're not negotiating properly. Negotiation isn't that you're guaranteed to win or get something. Negotiation is like a game of chess or a game of tennis. You're not guaranteed to win, but as long as you got the ball in play, you are still standing a chance of getting what you want. You obviously have to balance that when you're negotiating with what the other side also wants. Sorry for a long ramble, this was just a 5-minute clip and I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to subscribe, like, thumbs up, give me comments and feedbacks. I'd really like to know your thoughts on this BBC bullshit. Peace out.